Hello and welcome to the London Free Press Podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Gilbert. Regular hockey season begins in London this Friday. So we're talking with sports reporter Ryan Pyette about what the London Knights season might look like and which players to watch. Hi, Ryan. How are you?
Hey, Rachel. Good to see you again.
Good to see you too. We're almost done with the preseason because regular season starts tomorrow. So how did the preseason go? What did you think of it?
Yeah, I think it's the night. What the Knights like to do is they like to practice a lot. So they have two games near the start. They played Sarnia and they split 1 win, 1 loss each, and then they take a week off. And a lot of guys are heading off to NHL camps. And then they were pretty shorthanded because the Knights were one of the fortunate teams. They sent over 10 guys to rookie and NHL camps, which is obviously a lot, if like almost half your roster goes. And then so they played a couple against Erie. When Erie likes, Erie doesn't really sell out sell a lot of tickets for their exhibition games. So what they do is they always come close to London and play back to back. And this year they went to St. Thomas. In the past they've gone to other communities around London, and then they played in London, and they split the two games again. And so we don't read too much into the preseason results. I mean, obviously you don't like to see a team get blown out 10-0, and that didn't happen. The Knights were all working hard, and the young guys got a chance to play. So that's all they wanted. But now we're starting to see the roster that we're going to watch this year start to take form. And although there might be I think Easton Cowan, there might be a few guys not back for the opening weekend against Niagara. That's nothing that the Knights haven't dealt with before.
Okay. Yeah. Well, one guy that is kind of new, but also back to London is Michael Simpson, who was playing for Peterborough last year, but the Knights acquired him. He's the OHL playoff MVP. Is that right?
That's right. And obviously he beat his hometown team in the final last year. And, I got a chance to talk to him this week, and he's obviously very excited to come home and play. Grew up watching the Knights. But he said, I hope the fans don't boo me this time, like they did in the finals kind of
thing. No,
thing.
they'll be cheering for him this time.
Yeah, they'll be cheering for him now. It's funny how sports fans are like, they're a little fickle, right? You're not on our side. So
That's right.
I haven't seen a ton of, there's a lot of respect for the London guys that come in and visit over the years, you notice. But, the London guys, going back to Drew Doughty and all that, they remember when the fans are booing them. They hear it.
Oh, boy.
Especially when they're from London, right?
Yeah. Well, and Simpson grew up like watching the Knights, right? He played for the junior Knights. So is he happy to be home?
Yeah, I think so. And I think what we've seen is, you go back to Nazem Kadri. He was in Kitchener and they brought him home and he played very well. George Diaco last year played in Hamilton. The Hunters brought him back and he played very well and obviously was a leader on the team. And, so I don't think they're scared to bring in guys, from London. Obviously it's an adjustment playing in a place like Peterborough or Hamilton or even Kitchener to come back to London and play. And obviously there's more people know you, there's more demands on your time. But, I could tell he's really excited. And he says, I think with that, he faced these guys last year and he thinks this is a team capable of winning again. And obviously Peterborough was going to rebuild this year. They're going to be a kind of lower seed team. And the Knights don't ever seem to really rebuild. So they're always kind of going for it. So he's very excited to get this chance to try to win a Memorial Cup again, which they just fell short, right? Semifinals.
Right. That's right. Well, now we got the MVP, so hopefully that'll take us pretty far. What does our goalie situation look like this year? Because he's a goalie. We've got a few other strong goalies, though, too.
Yeah, so in order to bring in Michael Simpson, the Knights traded Zach Bowen, who, of course, last year, 16 wins in a row at one point. He was 17-year-old rookie. Big goalie, capable of making fantastic saves. So he's out the door. He goes to Peterborough in that trade. And that leaves Owen Wilmore, who, I've always been intrigued by Owen Wilmore. He played St. Thomas a couple years ago. And then last year from St. Thomas got traded to Stratford in Junior B. And then went to Game 7 of the Sutherland Cup Finals. So very long run, amazing run for him. And then all of a sudden came in the playoffs, and he's been around the Knights for the last couple of years as a prospect. And then all of a sudden, when Bowen kind of struggled in the OHL final, he got thrown in there for the last 2 games and played exceptionally well. He allowed 3 goals in 2 games. So really good bat. He's going to turn 19 this year, so he's a veteran guy too. So when Simpson's gone, you'd think that Wilmore would be able to take the reins the following year. But they also have Alexei Medvedev, obviously Russian kid, but lived here in Canada to play minor hockey as a lot of those guys do. Mm-hmm. And he's one of the most acrobatic and skilled and athletic goalies. He doesn't weigh very much right now, but he's going to be very tall and be a prototype goalie. And he's one of the most exciting goalie prospects the Knights have had in a long time. And when the Knights played Erie in St. Thomas, he was phenomenal. So he'll spend most of the time in, unless something goes awry with Simpson and Wilmore, he's going to spend a lot of the year developing in St. Thomas, playing lots of games. He's already started to play a bunch of games. So, and then, they'll try to get him in some action here during the season but he's the next guy. He's on the list to be the next guy for the Knights down the road.
Yeah. So we got a strong roster there. Simpson was at the Penguins training camp. So what are his prospects looking like in the NHL? Because he's 20 now, so he could be going soon.
Yeah, and I think he got that invite. He probably would have got a couple of invites, but he went to Pittsburgh based on his success, through the playoffs, had a tremendous playoff MVP. That usually happens, but no contract guarantee, So Brett Brochu went through that last year till, he got a minor league contract this year. So he wants to play pro hockey. And like you said the other day, he's like, what better place than London? You look at, there's like 30 guys in the NHL right now that played for the Knights, right? And, he wants to be the next guy. And obviously as a goalie, you got to build your way up and go through the system and all that. But if he has another good year, it's going to be hard for a team not to look at that guy and say, maybe we should get this guy into our organization.
Yeah. Just looking at the team as a whole, how is this year maybe going to be different from last year? And who are we looking at for some of the star players?
Yeah, I think we should expect the team to score more. Their defense is almost unparalleled in terms of talent and draft picks. And obviously Sam Dickinson could be one of the top 5 NHL draft picks next year. And then you add in Oliver Bonk, Isaiah George, Jackson Edward. It's a real good back end. And up front, obviously Barkey and Cowan will take another big step. They took a great step in the second half of the season last year, playing with Ryan Winterton. And I think you should expect another jump, maybe in that 80, 100-point range if they can, if things work out for them. And obviously, we talked before about Kasper Halttunen from Finland. He's a sniper, so he'll fit in perfectly with those guys who are kind of pass-first guys for the most part. Up front, that they may need to add another guy. I think at some point they're going to be. You got to go down the stretch here, and if you're going to win the league, you're going to have to add somebody at some point. They always do.
Right.
So but I think they got a real solid team, and a lot of good local talent. You look at Jacob Julian and his development from the U18 draft and playing with the London Nationals, and now a Winnipeg Jets draft pick, and obviously he's going to have a big impact on the team. And the same guys that have been here, but Brody Crane should take a step, the next step, and obviously guys that dominated Junior B last year, Sam O'Reilly with the Nationals and Will Nickel, the Rookie of the Year in the Western Conference. He's been hurt for the training camp, but I'm told he's ready to go. And he had a great year in St. Thomas last year. So those guys are 17, and they're excited to be in the NHL draft this year too. So they want to make a good impression. Unfortunately, Landon Sim, a real key piece in that checking line role. He's hurt to start the year, and it might be, till December till he comes back. But I looked around. A lot of teams in the league are dealing with a couple of big injuries. So. The Knights aren't alone in that right now.
But they've got a great team. The standings right now, they're number 1 in the OHL, the Knights, in terms of preseason anyways. And in the CHL, they're number 2. So they're doing pretty well already. They've got good rankings to start with.
Yeah. And Mark Hunter was telling me the other day that that you don't win anything on paper. And I mean, I remember I've been at this long enough that I remember years that they were ranked number one in the CHL and then they lost their first 6 games.
No, don't say
And
that.
then, but I think part of that ranking is like you look at the talent and then you're like, well, the Hunters will figure out a way to make the team go. If you remember when we talked last year, they lost their first 4 games, right?
Yeah.
And then George Diaco came in. And so, bringing Michael Simpson in, having a good veteran goaltender, you're already kind of ahead of the game. So if some of these guys aren't back here right away, you could probably reel off a couple wins, because one win in 4 or 5 games, that's better than they started last year, and they still had a heck of a season. So I think a lot of these rankings are based on, we project that the London Knights are going to be there at the end, and it's always hard to get to bet against them.
That's true. Who are some of the biggest competitors like around the OHL? Who should we be looking for?
Well, so the Memorial Cup's in Saginaw, Michigan this year, and the Spirit have been, they were the front runners to get it, and they've been building this a long time. They've never hosted the Memorial Cup. They want to win it. They've never got there before. So this is a really big deal for them. And when they got it, so they're going to go all out to they know they got to beat the Knights. Owen Sound's going to be really good this year. The Knights saw them in the playoffs last year. Colby Barlow, could be an MVP this year. A great captain. But Saginaw is really going to go all in as you were, and you're going to have to match that. And it's really exciting because they have Michael Misa, who's obviously one of the best 16-year-olds in probably junior hockey right now. He was an exceptional first overall pick in 2022. And they have him. And Zane Parekh scored 21 goals as a 16-year-old defenseman, which, you think of all the good D that have come through, Evan Bouchard, Ryan Ellis. None of these guys have done that. So, they got a really good foundation, and they're going to accent that. They have pretty good goaltending. They got okay defense, so they're gonna build. And like we see teams, you remember Guelph a couple of years ago when they added Nick Suzuki and all these guys from Owen Sound and all that. They're gonna make and then won the league. That's what Saginaw's plan is. In the East is a little more wide open. I have Sudbury up there. Kingston's intriguing because they have like the 6 forwards who are all first round picks in the OHL, which is
wow.
If they can ever mash that together and get some chemistry going, that would be exciting for them. Ottawa's always good. Dave Cameron, veteran coach like Dale Hunter, he's always going to put a good product. They won 50 games last year. I wouldn't be surprised if they're up there again. Adam Dennis, the former Knights goalie, he's the GM in North Bay, and they lost to Peterborough in Game 7, heartbreaker. But they think they have the pieces to come back and win this time. So I don't know if we're going to see a lot of, at first we thought maybe they're going to sell off some guys and rebuild. No, I think they're going to go for it. So we'll see what happens with them early in the year. But it's a bit of a grab bag over there. Rachel, I could almost pick the bottom 4, as it were, the teams that are going to miss the playoffs.
I was going to say we have a lot of strong teams that you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I think Peterborough, I'm not sold on Niagara yet. They got the young Londoner Ryan Rubrook, who's going to be a great player in the league. He kind of looks like Austin Matthews type player to me. So he's going to fill the net, but they made so many trades. They're rebuilding. Sarnia and Kitchener in the West, I think are going to struggle. But that was expected after the people they lost this year. So, but I've seen times where we've said that, and then a team like Kitchener, maybe they got a new coach, Finnish coach, and maybe they jump up and surprise some people, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's early, so we'll see. There's a few other changes happening around the league. The Hamilton Bulldogs are now the Brantford Bulldogs, so that's brand new. So they're moving into a smaller arena.
Yeah. So I'm old enough that when I was growing up, the Brantford had the Alexanders, and actually Mark Hunter played for the Brantford Alexanders when he was in junior hockey. And it's the same rink that he played in.
Oh, wow.
Like 40-something years ago. So, it hasn't changed much. They're trying to do some renovations, but obviously in Hamilton, the big old Cops Coliseum, First Ontario Center, they got massive renovations that they got to do there. The rink's getting older. So, they basically booted out. And, it'll be interesting to see if they ever return to Hamilton. I mean, this isn't the first time that Hamilton's dealt with this. Junior hockey's been kind of transient there for many years, but the Bulldogs have been a great franchise. They won a couple of league championships, and and when it gets going in there, it gets going. But I think what we're going to see in Brantford is that they're excited about it. They got a small rink. It's going to be like when when Mississauga Ice Dogs moved to Niagara for the first time. They played at a tiny Jack Gatecliff arena. It's as old as can be. They actually demolished it this past year, and but it was rocking when you went in there, and it was packed all the time. And I think we're going to see a similar thing in Brantford, to the point where at some point, if they're going to stay there, they're going to have to get a new rink, right?
Right.
Up to the standards.
The
but
town's
it's a throwback,
probably excited,
and we've seen that before. Yeah.
Yeah. And you had a story about how the OHL commissioner, David Branch, is going to retire after this year, right? This is his last year.
Yeah, so he's been the commissioner for most of my lifetime. And I was just kind of reflecting back on, and obviously I'll talk to Dave at some point here. But he's gone through many changes. This league was 12 teams, 10, 12 teams when he took over in the 70s. It was mom and pop, like kind of organized, like kind of old school. The rinks were all kind of like old. And now what he's ushered in is, it's obviously, you go in any rink and you see the sponsorship, the ticket, the tickets, the product. It's been quite some of that was natural, going to happen, but he had obviously a lot of influence on how the league has moved forward to where it's like a mini NHL now, right?
Yeah.
And that's what he wanted. That was the path he wanted to do. I think with Dave, the thing I could say about him was always kind of sometimes reactionary, but always had the players' interests at heart. And there's obviously, when you have junior hockey, things are going to pop up and controversies and all that.
Yeah.
But he wanted what was best for the players, and so if something bad happened in the league, he tried to make it right. I've seen a lot of things like mental health's been a big thing the last 10 years. They've partnered with CMHA. He was one of the first guys to dole out, and he took a lot of heat for it, but he doled out huge punishments for head hits, which is, when I was growing up, head hits were just part of hockey, and then you had a fight if somebody got hit in the head. But he was throwing 10, 15, 20 game suspensions at people, and that opened people's eyes. And then obviously he's been a leader in getting rid of the habitual fighter, the guys that fight like every game. And I think having talked to Dave over the years, there's been some times where really good prospects have come through and they've been hurt. They got to the NHL damaged. They were hurt. They had bad shoulders that they hurt in the OHL. And I think one of the things he said was, like, our job is to send these guys off to the NHL or into the working world with, with their faculties, not to have concussions or brain damage, and not to have, injuries that are going to affect their hockey careers or their life, whatever they do in their careers. So I know there's been the last 15, 20 years, there's been a real focus on that. And above all else, if that's what you remember, I remember him telling me one time, if I'm remembered for that, that'd be okay. Right. Yeah. That'd be a good legacy. Yeah.
Sounds like he does have a good legacy to leave.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not always been perfect, right? There's always been situations you're dealing with young men, and we've seen a few over the years that you think the league would like to have back, but all in all, you'd have to say the league's really progressed forward from what it was when he took it over.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you, Ryan. We're definitely going to keep an eye on your stories at lfpress.com, because we know you'll have everything on the Knights starting this Friday, regular season. Thanks so much.
Yeah, anytime, Rachel. Thanks.